All right. Let's be honest for a second. How many of you are in a relationship where you're laying right next to your partner, but instead of talking, laughing, touching, or even just being present, you're both scrolling? One person is deep into TikTok, the other is watching reels, liking pictures, replying to messages, and hours go by without a single meaningful interaction. You're physically together, but emotionally completely disconnected. And what's crazy is we've normalized this. We've made it okay to give our attention to everyone else in the world except the person we claim to love the most. Now, if you're new here, welcome. I'm Alicia Minor Gaines, licensed marriage and family therapist, relationship coach, and yes, some training in sex therapy as well. And this is Hearts Wine from Hearts Distractions, the podcast where we get real, raw, and sometimes a little uncomfortable about love, connection, and everything in between. This is the space where we talk about the things people feel, but don't always say out loud. The distractions that pull us apart, the patterns we don't realize we're repeating, and the emotional wine, yes, those tears, that come from trying to figure love out in real time. Because let's be real, relationships aren't just about love, they're about attention, they're about effort, they're about what or who gets the best version of you at the end of the day. And that's exactly what we're getting into today. We're talking about something that might feel small on the surface, but is actually creating a major shift in modern relationships: your partner's phone habits. Yeah, I said your phone habits, not just your partner's, right? Because sometimes it may take two. And because this isn't just about screen time, this is about priority. This is about presence. This is about what's slowly replacing real connection. So let me ask you this. When When did your phone become more interesting than your partner? When did scrolling become easier than connecting? When did "I'm just tired" turn into "I'd rather be on my phone than engage with you"? Because for a lot of couples, this isn't just a bad habit. It's becoming a silent relationship killer. No arguments, no big blow-ups, just slow, quiet disconnection. And before you know it, you're not fighting anymore. You're just distant. So today, we're going to unpack it all: the truth, the tension, the avoidance, and the uncomfortable reality that your relationship might not be competing with another person, but it is competing with a screen. Hello, let's call it what it is. The phone has become the third party in a lot of relationships, not in an obvious, dramatic way like cheating, but in a subtle, consistent way that chips away at connection over time. It's the constant interruption, the quick glance at a notification while your partner is talking, the "hold on" that turns into 5 minutes of scrolling, the habit of reaching for your phone the moment there's silence instead of leaning into each other. And what makes this so dangerous is that it doesn't feel like a big deal in the moment. It feels normal, harmless, routine, but emotionally, it sends a message. Every time you choose your phone over engaging with your partner, the message, which is, whether intentional or not, is this is more important than you right now. Now, imagine that message being sent over and over and over again, not through words, but through behavior. Over time, that builds something: not connection, but distance; not intimacy, but disinterest. There's actually research that talks about something called technoference, which is basically when technology interrupts face-to-face interactions. And studies have shown that even small interruptions, like checking your phone during a conversation, can lower relationship satisfaction and increase feelings of conflict. Why? Because it makes the other person feel dismissed, unseen, and unimportant. And let's be real, most people won't even say it out loud. They'll just feel it. They'll internalize it. They'll start pulling back emotionally. They'll stop trying to connect the way they used to, not because they don't care, but because they don't feel like they're competing fairly for your attention. And here's the part we don't talk about enough. Your partner shouldn't have to compete with your phone to feel valued. I know some of y'all are rolling your eyes at me already, but it's okay. We're going to keep going because we're going to go a little deeper, of course. Because if we're being honest, most people don't intentionally choose their phones over their partners. It's just, it just happens. It's automatic. It's habitual. It becomes a reflex. You sit down, you pick up your phone, you feel bored, you scroll. You feel overwhelmed, you scroll. You don't feel like talking, you scroll. And before you even realize it, your phone has become your go-to emotional outlet. And there's a reason for that. Your phone is designed to keep you engaged. Every notification, every like, every video, it gives you a small hint of dopamine, that quick feeling of satisfaction. And the problem is that kind of stimulation is easy. It doesn't require vulnerability. It doesn't require effort. It doesn't require emotional availability. But real relationships, guess what? They do. So when you've had a long day, when you're mentally drained, when you're emotionally tapped out, it feels easier to scroll than to connect. Because connection requires presence. It requires listening. It requires energy. And a lot of people don't even realize that they're choosing the easier option over the more meaningful one. Y'all didn't even hear me when I just said that. I might have to repeat that for some of y'all. A lot of y'all out here that are dating, that are couples, that are married, short-term, long-term, don't even realize that you're choosing the easier option of scrolling through your phones than choosing the more meaningful option, which is the partner you chose. Okay. But let's be real about something else too here. Sometimes it's not just about being tired. Sometimes it's avoidance. Sometimes it's choosing your phone because you don't want to deal with what's happening in your relationship. You don't want to have that conversation. You don't want to address that tension. You don't want to sit in that uncomfortable silence. So instead, you escape. And social media makes the escape feel justified. It tells you deserve a break. You've been working hard. Just relax. But what it doesn't tell you is that while you're escaping, your relationship might be slowly disconnecting and failing. And here's the truth, if that wasn't enough. What you consistently give your attention to will grow, and what you consistently neglect will fade. So if your phone is getting your best energy, your curiosity, your laughter, your attention, and your partner is getting what's left over, what do you think is happening to your relationship over time? I'm going to leave that question right there. Now, let's talk about the part that people feel but don't always know how to explain, which is the hurt. Because this isn't just about being on your phone too much. It's about how it feels to be on the receiving end of that. It feels like being ignored without anyone saying they're ignoring you. It feels like competing without knowing what you're competing against. It feels like rejection in small, repeated moments that slowly build into something bigger. It's when you're talking and your partner says, without even looking up. It's when you're trying to connect and they're more engaged in a video than in you. It's when you're sitting together, but it feels like you're all alone. And over time, those moments don't just disappear, they stack. They turn into resentment. They turn into assumptions like, they don't care about me like they used to, or I'm not a priority anymore. And even if that's not the intention, that becomes the emotional reality. Let me paint a quick picture for you. There's a couple I used to work with. We're going to call them Maya and Jordan. Every night they go to bed at the same time. At first, they used to talk, laugh, joke with one another, check in with each other, but over time that changed. Now, the moment they get into bed, both of them grab their phones. One is scrolling through TikTok, the other is watching videos on Instagram. And they tell themselves, we're just winding down. But here's what they don't realize. They've replaced connection with consumption. They've replaced intimacy with distraction. And now, even though they're physically close every night, emotionally, they've never felt further apart. And this is how it happens. Not through one big moment, but through 1,000 small ones. Now, let's step into a conversation that might make some people uncomfortable, but it needs to be had. When does phone behavior cross the line from harmless to harmful, and even into emotional cheating? Yep, I'm throwing that in there tonight. Because let's be honest, it's not always just scrolling. Sometimes it's who you're engaging with while you're on that phone. It's the late night DMs. It's the comments that feel a little too personal. It's the conversations you wouldn't want your partner to see. And the justification is always the same. It's not cheating. But here's the thing. Just because something isn't physical doesn't mean it's not emotional. If you're giving attention, energy, curiosity, and connection to someone else in a way that you're not giving to your partner, that creates a problem. Because emotional intimacy is one of the foundations of a relationship. And when that starts being redirected elsewhere, your partner is going to feel it. And this is where the debate comes in. Intent versus impact. You might say, I didn't mean anything by it, but your partner might say, it hurt me anyway. And both things can exist at the same time. So the real question becomes, are your phone habits building trust in your relationship or slowly breaking it down? Because secrecy, even in small forms, create distance. And distance creates disconnection. And disconnection creates vulnerability for something or someone else to step in. If I was a better teacher, y'all will be hearing me tonight. But let's talk about the argument part of this. Because if this hasn't come up in your relationship yet, it probably will. It usually starts small. One partner says something like, you're always on your phone. And the other responds with, I'm not always on my phone, or I just got on it, or why are you making a big deal out of nothing? And just like that, the conversation shifts. It's no longer about the feeling, it's about the defense. Because underneath that statement, you're always on your phone, there's usually something deeper. What that person is really saying is, I miss you. I feel ignored. I don't feel important. But instead of expressing the vulnerability, it comes out as frustration. And the other person, your partner, they hear criticism. They feel attacked. So they defend themselves instead of trying to understand. And now you've got two people both feeling something real, but neither one feeling heard. This is where communication breaks down. Not because the issue is too big, but because the emotions underneath it aren't being expressed clearly. And here's the truth: this argument is rarely about the phone, it's about connection, it's about presence, and it's about feeling valued. So now the question becomes, how do you fix something that feels so normal, so routine, so ingrained in everyday life? The answer isn't to throw your phone away, of course. Let's be realistic. That's not happening. But what can change is how intentional you are with your attention. Because connection doesn't require perfection, it requires presence. It looks like putting your phone down when your partner is talking and actually making eye contact. It looks like creating small moments of undistracted time, whether that's during meals, before bed, or even just 10 minutes of intentional conversation. It looks like asking your partner how their day was and actually listening to the answer. And most importantly, it looks like being aware of the habits you've normalized and asking yourself, is this helping my relationship or hurting it? Because small shifts create big change. And when both partners start choosing each other consistently, intentionally, that's when connection starts to rebuild. Now, can we go a little deeper? Because this is the part that might be uncomfortable even more. But trust me, it is necessary. Is the phone really the problem, or is it exposing a problem that already exists? Yes, I said it. Because sometimes people don't turn to their phones because they're addicted to scrolling. They turn to their phones because they don't feel connected in their relationship anymore. Because it feels easier to engage with content than to sit in the reality of disconnection. Sometimes the phone isn't the cause, it's the symptom. And that's where accountability comes in, not just for one partner, but for both. Because it's easy to say you're always on your phone, but the deeper question is, what's happening between us that makes the phone feel like a better option? Are we communicating? Are we emotionally available? Are we creating a space where connection feels safe and fulfilling? Because if not, the phone will always win. And let's also acknowledge something else. This generation is navigating relationships in a way no other generation has before. As far as constant access, constant stimulation, constant comparison, and it's changing how we connect, how we communicate, and how we show up for each other. So the question isn't just, are phones ruining relationships? The question is, are we adapting in a way that protects our relationships or slowly disconnects us from them? So I want to leave you with this. The next time you're sitting next to your partner and you instinctively reach for your phone, pause just for a moment and ask yourself, what would happen if I choose them instead? What would happen if you put the phone down and pick up the conversation? If you leaned in instead of checking out? If you gave your partner the same attention you gave a screen? Because at the end of the day, relationships don't fall apart all at once. They fade in small moments of disconnection, and they're rebuilt in small moments of presence. So tonight, tomorrow, whenever you get the chance, choose connection, choose presence, choose each other. And if this episode made you think, made you reflect, or made you look at your relationship a little differently, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel, Hearts Wine from Hearts Distractions. Visit my website, www.aliciasdistractions.com. Definitely go pick up my book, Hearts Wine from Hearts Distractions, on Amazon. And follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Because we're going to keep having these real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable conversations about love, connection, and everything in between. And remember, sometimes the biggest distraction in your relationship isn't another person. It's the one thing you refuse to put down. Cheers.